XJ Talk Show.
It's on.
Now.
Well, greetings and salutations. This is Tony Motorroy on xjtalk.com, and this is the show about Jeep Cherokees. Brought to you by xjtalk.com. Did I mention that already? So, I was listening to last week's show, and I noticed I never talked about the power door lock module, the PDM. How does that work? The driver's passenger driver module. No, passenger door module. You know, this isn't a live show. I probably should just go back and start over, but I'm not. So we'll talk about that first. And also some interesting information that I gathered from getting a nice fuel pressure gauge and testing my 1998 Jeep Cherokee's fuel pressure. That and more coming up in just a minute. xjtalk.com.
xjtalk.com.
It's where you go when you're not off-road.
Hello, this is Kurt, a.k.a. Weldman from Wisconsin. If you're looking to get some great information or share what you know about your XJ, and you need to see some pictures of other XJs to get some great ideas or how-tos, this is the place. We come from all over the world, so you might even make a few great friends. You won't find a better group of people to chat with, and best of all, we don't judge you for your ride, so stock or super modified, you are always welcome here. So look no further, xjtalk.com, the place you need to be. So sign up, sign in, and have some fun.
Hey, sweetness.
Did you know that xjtalk.com is on Facebook? Just go to facebook.com/xjtalk and friend us. We're also on Twitter, twitter.com/xjtalk.
Okay.
So as I was saying, I completely forgot to talk about the passenger door module, the thing that controls the window and the power locks, the window on the passenger side front, and all of the power locks, including the lock on the hatch. Now there's a switch. I guess it would be a child lockout switch on the driver's door module, but the actual controlling of getting power to the actuators in the door locks for the 1998 Jeep Cherokee that I was working on, all that's controlled from the passenger door module. There's actually two relays there, and when I first started looking at it, I just assumed one relay was for opening and the other relay was for closing, sending the lock-unlock signal. But as I was replacing some relays, replacing those relays, I actually found that they seem to both be used in conjunction to send the open and close signals. In other words, you can have one relay on there and it won't lock or unlock the doors. You have to have both relays on there for the signal to get propagated to those automatic locks, those lock actuators. So actually, that's changed since last week when I was doing last week's Wednesday show. Oh, and actually, before we get more into the passenger door module, let me make this statement. Last week, I mentioned that we probably weren't going to be doing the live show anymore, at least not right now, since we have had a drop-off in attendance. I guess maybe Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Central might be a bad time, but in talking about it on the website, xjtalk.com, we never could find a good time for everybody. So it was just kind of judged to leave it Wednesday, 8 p.m. And that is, I don't know, maybe the show's not interesting to the people that have been listening, and they're just not listening anymore. People are still listening to the podcast. So I think it's a matter of convenience and timing, and maybe even remembering when the show's on. So I'm going to go ahead and make the commitment that I'm going to keep doing the show. I enjoy it. It's fun to talk about this stuff, and I'm getting good feedback from the people that are listening. So even if one or two people are listening regularly, I'm going to keep doing it. But for the live show, I'm not going to do that because there's no sense in me making this thing happen at 8 p.m. Central on Wednesdays whenever I could just record it, which was the original idea anyway, is just to record it and make it available for people to download and listen whenever they wanted to. And you also, I've added a play button on the xjtalk.com site. It's in the upper right-hand corner. It's just a play button. If you click that, it will start playing the latest podcast, and it plays it in a pop-up window, which you may have to go into your browser and allow the pop-up window to actually come up. But once that pop-up window comes up and XJ Talk show starts playing, you can continue browsing. You can continue browsing on xjtalk.com, or as far as that goes, you can browse anywhere you like. That little window will stay up. And I have about, I guess, 4 or 5 shows queued up inside that little window. So it'll play the most recent one, then after that it'll play the next most recent, so on and so forth. So you should have a multi-hour experience there if you actually want to have it. And you can use the controls to skip to a show that you haven't heard before. So anyway, that's that. And that's why this week's show wasn't available to you on Wednesday, late Wednesday, or early Thursday, because it's technically Thursday now, about 9:14 p.m. And that's the nice thing about being able just to record the podcast and not have it live, because I can do it whenever I have time to do it. And I'm hoping that will make it a little easier to get people on to interview. If I can work the show to fit their schedule, then we can maybe have some more guests on. I was hoping that we would get Jensen on and we could talk about his most recent race, but I think he may have gone offline. I'd send him a little message, but we'll see. Maybe he'll pop in. Okay, back to the power. I'm sorry, I keep saying power because it's power locks. The passenger door module. It's called a PDM. There's the DDM and the PDM. And those are the switches and buttons that allow you to raise and lower the windows and lock and unlock the doors. And I think this is, it may be a common thing on more than just the 97 plus Jeep Cherokees, but I only have experience now with two types of Cherokees, or actually 2-year model Cherokees, and that's the 98 and the 99. So that's what I'm going to have to talk to. That I'll have to speak about what I have experience in. So whenever I had taken when I had found out that the relays are actually on the passenger door module, I removed the inside of the door panel, disconnected the metal lines that run to the manual lock, and then unhooked the harness from the 2 connection points, electrical connection points on the passenger door module, and was actually able to, through a little more research, I was actually able to find out that you need to pop the little buttons off before you can remove the circuit board. And they fit on there very tight, and I was really afraid that I was going to break it. But reading, I saw that that's just how you get them off. You put a screwdriver underneath there, and you pry them off, and they do come off. But boy, it's a very nice piece of engineering. They fit very tightly. So anyway, once those buttons are off, I'm able to get the circuit board out. Unfortunately, the way the unit is designed, they have the circuit board soldered directly to the pins that make up the two harness connectors on the back of the passenger door module. So the only way to expose the connection points for the relays where they're soldered to the circuit board is to unsolder all those pins. So at least I was able to get the part numbers off of the relays. And after tapping on the relays with the back of a hammer, back of a screwdriver, I got the locking working as well as the unlocking. So that lasted about a day, and it stopped locking again. So that led me to believe that it was probably a relay that was sticking and not allowing the lock signal to be sent out. So anyway, I found some relays with that exact part number online for $7.50 a piece, and I believe that was a little high, but there wasn't a lot of choices. They had a $25 minimum order, so I ordered 4. I could have ordered 3, but I figured I've got 2 Jeep Cherokees, 97 plus Cherokees, so if one's gone out, the chances are good the other one's going to go out too. So I ordered 4 of those, which wound up being $30 and then $6 shipping. So it was a total of $36 to get 4 of these little relays. And then, I don't know, I guess it was maybe 3 days after ordering those that they showed up. So that evening, after I received them, that evening I went out, removed the door panel, removed the circuit board from the enclosure, and had thought about it. I didn't want to really unsolder those pins to remove the circuit board. So I thought, well, what I will do is I'll use my Dremel tool and a little cutoff wheel, and I'll cut a rectangular opening in the back of the PDM so that I can get the soldering iron to the contacts of the 2 relays. There's 5 connection points on each relay. So that's what I did. It worked out well. I was able to cut the right size rectangle so that I could get to all those pins. And I did it in, just cut the one thing. I didn't have to do it in pieces. So I had a nice big, correct size fitting rectangular panel to put back in that hole. I would just be able to put it back and tape it back in place. Although I don't think that's any big deal to have it exposed. It's 12 volts. Water shouldn't be getting there. Even if it does, it's 12 volts. If it's fresh water, it's not going to do anything anyway, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, to make it look a little nice, I did it that way so that I could at least put it back and have it look somewhat factory when I was done. So I opened up I exposed the back of the circuit board where the relays were. And by the way, all this is available on xjtalk.com with pictures. So you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Once that area was exposed, I heated up the connection points for the 2 relays that were in there from the factory, and I used compressed air to blow the solder away and basically free the pins from the relay off the circuit board. And once I had heated all of those, and it was a fairly quick process. Once I had heated all those and got the solder off those connection points, I was able to remove both relays without much difficulty at all. So then I took 2 new relays and put them in there and bent the pins over so that it would hold itself on the circuit board, and then took some solder and the soldering iron and heated the board and the pins and got a good non-cold solder joint connection, and put it back in the door and tested it, and it worked, locked and unlocked. So that seems to have solved the problem. However, I was trying to lock the doors today, and it wouldn't lock. So I was a little puzzled by that. I thought about the alarm system I have on the Jeep, and thinking that maybe it was trying to do something, sending a pulse out at the time, and I waited a little bit and tried it again, and it still didn't work. So I just hit on the side of the door where the PDM is. Just gave it a nice little shot, not really very hard. Just kind of gave it a bump and tried it, and it was working. So There may be a bad connection in there that I missed. I don't know how, because I know how to solder things, so I'm not exactly sure where that problem may be. But it's not 100% yet. I mean, it's one failure after 2 days of it working without any issues. So I'll just have to continue to use it and see what happens. But at this point, it looks like it was 100% failure before, and now it's running at 98%, I guess. So it's a vast improvement over where it was. You don't realize how big a pain in the butt it is when you can't lock the doors until you have to manually lock 4 doors and then put the key in the hatch and lock it. And if I didn't have an alarm system on the Jeep that I had to press to disable the alarm, it probably wouldn't be that big a deal. But because I have that, and I wasn't able to find in the setup of the alarm where you could disable the automatic unlocking of the doors, I had to go through the manual locking process. So I was needless to say, I was a bit motivated to get that problem resolved, and so far I'm pretty happy with the results. So that's the PDM passenger door module, and again, not only is the passenger window control and the power locks control on that circuit board, it also has the main relays that power all the locks in the Jeep. So, you might think it's over on the other side, but they put it on the passenger door side, I think probably because they didn't have space on the driver's door module, since it has all the switches for all the windows, a child lockout for the locks, etc., etc. And I did find that the DDM on the 1999 seems to have a problem with the child lockout button. So I'll be having to take that one apart and hopefully just clean that switch, because none of the switches that control the locks or the windows work in the 99, with the exception of the driver's door module. So it's like all the locks have been locked out, and I think it's probably that child lockout button is even though you disable, you unpress it, it still thinks it's engaged. So another thing that I've been wanting to try to figure out is why my 98 Cherokee is requiring multiple start attempts, and it doesn't seem to. It seems to have gotten worse over time. And I remember not too long ago, it would. You'd barely even have to bump the starter, and it would start right up. So I had been asked, can you hear the fuel pump running, and have you tried turning the key on to the on position, to the run position, and then off, on, off 3 times, and then trying to start it, which I have. I've read about that, and I did try that. And then several people were telling me, well, you need to get your fuel pressure gauge and put it on there and see what your fuel pressure is. I said, well, I ain't got one. I don't want to spend $30 to buy one, when I could use that $30 to buy a sensor that I need to fix the problem. Well, as life, as I always say, life is a great teacher. And I think I've replaced every sensor on the engine now, with the exception of, well, technically the ECM isn't a sensor, but I believe I've replaced all the sensors now. So I finally decided to buy a fuel pressure gauge, which came in today. Got it from Amazon, which came in today, and I promptly went outside, hooked it up, and turned the key to the on position. Went over and looked at the gauge, and it said 0 PSI. Looking a little closer, it wasn't really 0, but it might have been like 5 or less pounds. And I was wondering, did I just misunderstand how this thing works? Because I sure was thinking that it once you turn the key on, the fuel pump comes on and it pressures up to, 45 pounds, 45 PSI? So I thought, well, that's strange. Maybe there's a problem with the gauge. Let me try starting the engine. So I started it up, and it's one of those deals where you have to go back and forth between where you start the engine and where you look at the gauge, because the gauge is only the hose on it is 2 feet long, if that, and you can't see it with the hood up. So I started the engine, walked back around, and looked, and it's running like 49.5 psi. And that was the other reason why I really didn't think there was a fuel pressure problem, is because the Jeep runs and it has plenty of power and get up and go, and it doesn't seem to be starved for fuel. So I said, well, the gauge is working, because 45 psi is what I was expecting, and I'm getting nearly 50. So okay, cool. So I went and turned the engine off, came back and looked, and yeah, there was still pressure, but it was just dropping really fast. And pretty soon, within 5 or 10 seconds, it was down below 10 psi. And then it just kind of sat there like around 8 psi, I guess. So I thought, well, maybe I misunderstood. How could this thing be running and not have a problem getting fuel if there's, if it's not passing the basic test that I thought it was supposed to be, which is, I thought that the leak down test is supposed to be, it's supposed to be stay 40 psi or better for minutes, not seconds. I mean, I was sure I wasn't seeing the full PSI of the engine off because it was dropping so fast. I mean, you literally could see the needle moving very quickly. So I thought, I came in, I posted some pictures of up on XJTalk of the readings I had on the gauge, and on my post about as engines start from 1 crank to 2 cranks, sometimes 3 cranks. And then I thought about what I was doing, and I said, well, that's strange. I do have a copy of the field service manual electronically on my computer, so I pulled that up, and I was looking at the diagnostic procedure, and it says 49.5, I think, PSI is normal, plus or minus 5 PSI. And I certainly was within that range with the engine running. So I thought, well, let me dig some more. Maybe I didn't understand how this thing is supposed to work. So I dug some more, and yeah, sure enough, the pressure should stay up. It shouldn't drop like that. So reading more, it says one of the things it could be is a leaky injector, not allowing the pressure to be held. And I guess it could be a leaky injector, but these are not the original injectors. They are Ford injectors, and I think I was told, and they'd certainly looked like they had 19 miles on them. Came out of a Ford Mustang, and I think a dealership had taken them out and replaced them with some higher performance injectors. And then I got these off of eBay. So I'm still in the diagnostic mode, so I guess it always could be a leaky injector, but I was having the same hard start problem before I changed the injectors. So I don't think it's an injector. I don't think so. I guess it could be, but I don't think so. So continuing to look and dig and getting some feedback from members on xjtalk.com, I'm thinking, well, maybe it's the pressure regulator. It doesn't seem to be the pump, but it may be the pressure regulator. So I looked, and I see pressure regulators run anywhere from $70 to $100. And on the 97 Plus, at least on the 98, the pressure regulator is located on top of the gas tank. So I'm dropping the gas tank to change that regulator at least. Now, the quandary that I'm in is, should I spend $100 on a pressure regulator, drop the tank, put on the pressure regulator, and then, run the test again and see if that fixes it? Or should I just get a whole pump assembly, which includes the pressure regulator, a new fuel filter? That's part of the regulator is a filter, but the screen, that's what I was trying to say. The screen, a float, a new pump, the whole 9 yards. And I think on what was it? I want to say Round Rock, but on a parts website that I don't have up now, the Carter brand is $205. So for basically double the price of the fuel regulator filter, I can get a whole thing. And I'm kind of leaning that way, even though it's $200, simply because I have to drop the tank. And if I'm going to go to the trouble of taking the tank skid plate off, taking the straps off, dropping the tank, blah, 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 blah. I might as well just do the whole thing. Now, I'm hopeful. I mean, certainly this has something to do with the fuel system, being that it's the way you get fuel out of the tank to the engine. I'm hopeful that this repair may improve my gas mileage, because I've been fighting a gas mileage problem for several years now, and has been one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, for changing out the sensors, both O2 sensors, the IAC, the MAF, the TPS. I think, I changed the CPS for another reason, and had some problems. Put the original one back and got rid of the problems. So technically, even though I have changed that sensor, it's back with the original one, and I do need to get a replacement. I think I will be getting that one from the Chrysler dealership, though, because I don't know, the CPS is just so critical. But but anyway, all the sensors, temp sensor, the IAC, the IAH, is that right? H, the basically the intake temperature sensor. I mean, unless there's a hidden sensor someplace I'm not aware of, I've changed it. I've either changed it, put it back, or it's got a new one in there. So unless there's a problem with the onboard computer, the ECM, I'm at a loss as to why I'm getting 12.5 miles to the gallon. Other than the thing that I thought when I first lifted and put the larger tires on, this is what happens whenever you play with the big boys. Whenever you do the lift and do the tires and everything else, your gas mileage is gonna suffer. Until I started hearing people talk about their gas mileage on their lifted rigs. And yeah, I know people can lie, they can exaggerate, but I don't think so. I think these people are actually getting. I'd be pretty happy with 16 city. Yeah, the 12.5 is city, not highway. So anyway, obviously I've got a problem since the pressure will not hold. It drops very quickly. And actually, I think I was going this direction a while ago, and I didn't finish my thought. After I had read a bit, I went back out into the garage, hooked up the fuel pressure gauge again, and did the 3 ignition key on-off thing to see why doing that wasn't getting the pressure up. So running back and forth again from the inside of the vehicle around to the front where I could see the gauge, I could see that, the fuel pressure was going up, and it was up past 40 PSI and dropping quickly by the time I got around to see the gauge. So it was pretty clear to me at that point that what was going on is that the fuel pressure has been dropping so fast once the engine isn't running that it wasn't starting it quick enough. So I tried doing the key cycle on and off, about a second between each cycle. And then right after that third cycle, I tried starting it, and it started right up. And that's because the fuel pressure was up around 40 PSI or better. So I'll do that in the morning, and then I'll feel, once it's sat overnight, then I'll feel a lot more confident that the ignition key 3 on-off cycle thing does get the fuel pressure up, and that will solve the issue as far as starting on the first attempt. And then I've got to, see about getting I got to decide if I'm going to get the fuel pressure regulator, or if I'm going to get the whole pump assembly. And I'm leaning towards the whole assembly, because I think that it would be silly to go through the work of dropping that tank and then not just put in a whole new thing. The one thing that's kind of scary, when I first started pricing those the fuel pump assembly, it is about $419 for the Chrysler part. Now, that's not from the dealership. It's just something I saw online because I was looking up a Chrysler part number. And $419. I also read, while doing the research, that the fuel filter, which is part of the fuel pressure regulator, is supposed to be changed at, I think the guy said 52,000 miles, and I'm just over 170,000. So, and I probably started seeing a problem with the gas mileage, noticing it around 100,000, 110,000 miles on the odometer. So I don't know. I wasn't really measuring the fuel, the MPG at that time. I really didn't do that until after I had lifted the Jeep, the suspension lift, and then put on the larger tires and wheels. And of course, gas was getting upwards of $4 a gallon at the time. So I was motivated not only to monitor it, but to do something about it. And over the 3 years, let's see, July this month would be 3 years that I've been collecting field information or miles per gallon information. The only thing that has made a drastic change in the mile per gallon was going from the 3.55 gears to the 4.56 gears. And that made about a 2 mile per gallon increase in gas mileage. I don't think it helps out much on the freeway, at least not with the 32-inch tires, but it certainly helped the city gas mileage, the stop and go, because it seems to be easier now for the engine to get the Jeep moving, getting up to speed. So we'll see. And yes, if you're wondering if the speedometer has been corrected, yes, it has been, and it always has been while I've been measuring the gas mileage, because before when I went to the 32-inch tires, I had the right gear to go in the transfer case. So it takes about 10 minutes, if that, to change out that gear. So once I had the 32-inch tires on there, I had the right gear in, and it was measuring the speedometer, GPS verified. And then when I went to the 456 gears, I got the little gear that goes with the 32-inch tires and the 456 gears. So speedometer's right. Way back when I had my 1983 Chevy four-wheel drive, I hated not having the speedometer read correctly. Hated it. And that was well before the internet. So research was done word of mouth and four-wheel drive magazines. And I happened to find a ad in the back of a four-wheel drive magazine where they would build you a gear reduction, whatever, something that you would take the cable that actually spun that went up to the speedometer. It basically built you an adapter that went between the transmission and that cable, and then it would turn the cable the right number of revolutions to give you the correct speed on your speedometer. I think I spent $30 on that thing, but it was very nice being able to tell the correct speed. And boy, it's just so much easier with the Jeep than it was with that thing. And I've read, the Jeep may do it too, I don't know, but some are simply corrected by going into the OBD2 port and setting it. I don't know. I've never seen a way to do that on the Jeep, but then again, I haven't experienced it all. So anyway, I'm hopeful, but I've been disappointed many times before. I'm hopeful that perhaps getting this fuel delivery problem resolved may have a positive impact on my miles per gallon. We shall see. So it looks like Jensen is still offline, or at least he's away, so I'm not very hopeful for a phone interview, but I kind of, since I didn't do this show Wednesday night, I thought I better get on the stick and get it done. This evening I've been playing around with my fuel pressure gauge. I also ordered a compression tester gauge, and I am planning on doing a compression check on the 4.0 in my 98. However, the real reason for that compression gauge is so that I can work on my wife's 96 Ford Mustang that has either a blown intake gasket or more than likely a blown head gasket, hopefully not a cracked head. So I'll be using that compression tester to see if I can find out which head it is, because I'm going to try to do the minimal amount of work necessary to get the Mustang going again. And it may wind up that I fix this problem and then the head on the other side has a problem. I'll just have to cross that bridge when it comes to it. because right now I have the 99 Jeep Cherokee running and going so that my wife can drive it. Oh, and that changed. We got a nice set of BFGoodrich All-Terrain 30-inch. It's 30 by 9.5 by 15-inch tires. And I was also able to pick up a nice set of Grizzly wheels, Jeep Grizzly wheels. They look a lot like the Ecos to me. And that was from, Cubs in 2019. And XJtalk member. Thank you very much. Those things look great. They look great with those tires. And, driving that 99 is just so nice. It doesn't buck. It doesn't, it's really smooth. It's not loud. It doesn't vibrate. So it kind of spoils me because, and the only thing I don't like about it is it sits so low, but it doesn't run hot on the highway. And it's very nice it's a very nice vehicle. I'm very happy with it. At this point, the bubbling that I was having in the radiator, I do not see. So it's quite possible, although I had not seen this problem on the 98, it's quite possible that I just had some trapped air in the coolant system after losing that lower radiator hose. And my wife has been driving it out to the mall to drop off the girls and then driving back out there to get them. And I was telling her that's 20 miles both ways. It's 10 miles out there and 10 miles back. So, and she's been watching the coolant gauge, and it'll go up past 210 occasionally, but it doesn't overheat. And if she gets out on the highway, it drops down well below 210. And like I said, the bubbling has gone. The reservoir is the overflow reservoir is at the right level. So I'm just not seeing an issue. This weekend, I'm going to go ahead and change out the upper radiator hose on it, just so we don't have a repeat of a hose blowing. Now the lower radiator hose, I believe, has a lot more pressure on it from the water pump. So I don't think that the upper hose is as likely to blow. But since it's my wife's vehicle, I don't really want to risk it. If something happens, then that means I've got to get to her, and then I've got to work on it someplace that it's not going to be as convenient, and it's certainly going to be a lot hotter. Wherever the engine bay is certainly going to be a lot hotter. Me working on it on the side of the road someplace. So it's just best to go ahead and change the hoses. In fact, I should have done that the day I bought it and got it home, because you don't know how old those hoses are. The factory clamps were still being used on the thing. So that should have been a very good clue to me that perhaps they weren't changed. Or if they were changed, it could have been done under maintenance, which means a Chrysler certified engineer would have changed them, and he would have reused those clamps, or maybe even used some new clamps, but still that same factory style. But nonetheless, it doesn't cost that much. I think the lower radiator hose was like $17 or something, so not a big deal, and it would have taken away a lot of grief and time that I spent going through and working on if I had just done that. So let that be a lesson to you. And if you get a Jeep with 100,000+ miles on it, don't assume the radiator hoses are good. Even if you drive it a long ways and you don't have a problem. In fact, that's probably what weakened the hose, was me driving out 70 miles to a friend of mine's little shop that he has out in the woods, and driving it back 70 miles at 80+ miles an hour on the freeways, and then turned it over to my wife, very happy that the air conditioning had been fixed and it drove so nicely, very confident that she would do very well and be very happy with it, able to drive to a party that her and the girls were going to, or needed to go to. And then it failed on the way back, and it was the lower radiator hose, and a loose, it seems to be a loose belt caused the issue with the alternator, because we haven't had any other alternator issues with it dropping down to the 9 volts since I was able to tighten the belt, which is another thing I need to replace. I'm not sure if I'm going to be replacing that belt this weekend or not. So we're going to do things a little differently, as I was mentioning at the top of the show. We're not going to do the live show, although somebody did mention doing the live show maybe once a month or once a quarter, and I like that idea. There's nothing wrong with a live show. In fact, I thought it would be a lot of fun because people could interact with me and the guests via the chat room. I know on some of the Ustream shows that I have watched and enjoyed, that dimension of being able to interact with the person doing the show was a lot of fun. And for whatever reason, that didn't seem to be working out here. And it may just be that I need to build a bigger audience before we do the live show. I might have just tried to bite off too much at one go. And I think it worked pretty good to start with. I mean, we were having 20, 30 people listening to shows to start with. But we're going to try it a little different. So still going to be doing the podcast. Should still get a show once a week. And it may or may not be on Wednesday. That's kind of up in the air. For this show, for example, it's Thursday. It may be on a Friday. May be coming out on the weekend. I'll try to make it where you can count on the specific day of the week so you won't have to wonder. And, of course, you can check xjtalk.com and just look up there for announcements as to when the show is going to be or any time changes and so on and so forth. But I really appreciate you listening, and I hope you continue to listen. And I hope you will tell some people to listen. Let's build a little audience. Let's get a little more going on. I feel a little awkward about asking people to be guests whenever there's only 20, 25 people subscribed to the podcast. Now, I don't know. I hear people say, 25 people, that's a lot more than 2. So be happy with that. And it just may be a learning curve on my part as far as how many people I should expect to be listening to the show. I'm just, frankly, a little surprised there's not more people listening. Not that I'm all that entertaining, but there's not any competition, podcast about a Jeep Cherokee. And maybe the subject matter is just too obscure. Anyway, like I said, learning curve, and hopefully I'll learn to improve upon things. But anyway, like I said, we're operating a little differently since we are not going to have the live show and the chat room where you can ask questions. That even gives more emphasis on our call-in line. So we still got it. It's 24/7. It's voicemail. All you have to do, and I think it'd be a lot of fun, not only to have your voice played on the show, your question, your comment, feedback, whatever. I think it'd be interesting to other people. So take the time to call our feedback line and ask your question, make your comment, whatever you'd like to do, and we'll play it on the show. That number is 530-675-4102, 530-675-4102. And again, it's a voicemail line. Nobody's going to answer. You don't have to worry about saying something wrong or waking somebody up. Just leave your message. If you mess it up and you don't want that one to say, hey, I messed it up, I'll call back. Call back and try it again. And I'll put the best one that you did on there, on the air. And there's no guarantee that I'll use it. But right now, with so few to use, I'll be happy to put them all on and get on as many as I can. And of course, if we can't play them or hear them all on this week's show, then we'll move into the next week. Hopefully, we can build an audience and we can all have fun with this and learn. And I'm hoping that my experiences with my Jeep Cherokees are helping you already. I know that I've heard feedback from several people on the xjtalk.com site that we've saved them a bunch of money. And I really, really like hearing that, because that was one of my goals, to make a very useful website where people could get on and share information and help each other out. And boy, saving money, that makes a huge difference, especially in today's economy. So please call the voicemail feedback line. And don't forget, we're on Facebook and Twitter. You heard the announcement earlier. And don't forget to visit xjtalk.com. If you're not a member, get on there and register. It's free. I mean, what's better than that? Free information and saves you money. If you're a Jeep vendor, or you want to be, and you've looked at some of the prices, advertising prices on the other sites, you can be a vendor and advertise on xjtalk.com for as little as $5 a month. That's $5 a month. And that's a price that anybody can afford. And we did that on purpose because we don't want to keep the little guy who has the next great the next great product for Jeep Cherokee. We don't want to keep that hidden under a bush. We want to be able to get the word out. So, consider it. We were hitting 100,000 page images a month, and that's dropped down. I don't know if it's because of summertime or what, but we had gone up above 100,000, and now we're back down to around 79,000 page impressions a month. So that's still a lot. So the price performance, the $5 a month for 80,000 page impressions a month, that's a pretty good deal. So again, thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. Sorry that we're not having the live show, but I think it'll be back with your help and continued support, and with your calls to the feedback line. I think it'll get people involved, and that's what's important. That's what's important on this whole thing. Get involved. Post on the site. You got a question? It doesn't matter what the question is. No matter how simple or dumb you think it is, somebody else has that same question. I know you hear this stuff from school and teachers, but it really is true. That's kind of the nice thing about me running the site. I can ask the dumb questions, and only a few people will call me stupid, and usually they do that to my face. Okay, guys, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week. This has been episode 32 of the Jeep Cherokee xjtalk.com show. Everybody have a good day.